Welcome to the MMA Roadshow with John Morgan. This is episode number 7. I am John Morgan, and right now the crew is back together again. My man Cold Coffee is finally back with me. And let me tell you where we're at, first of all, before we hear from Cold Coffee. This might be our best yet. Now, we're not outdoors. We're not enjoying a fresh breeze, but we do have a cold beverage as well. This is the San Miguel, I believe, is the local.
San Miguel Pale Pilsen.
San Miguel Pale Pilsner is what we have. We'll be having a couple Red Horses later on.
Yes, the strong one.
That's the strong one.
That's also a San Miguel product.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
Fantastic. All right. So we are in Manila in the Philippines, and we are in the absolutely gorgeous Solaire Resort and Casino, which is serving as the host hotel this week for the UFC Fight Night 66, Frankie Edgar versus Uriah Faber. And we pulled up a seat at a bar right underneath. There's a crystal dragon overlooking us. I guess I'm imagining that's some kind of good luck situation.
I think it is. Yeah, it brings good fortune and what. And if you want an idea of what it looks like, I believe John posted a picture on the MMA Roadshow Instagram. So if you guys aren't following us, there's a chance to get a good look at some stuff.
That's why you got to follow, because then you know what we're seeing and what we're doing.
Exactly.
So, yeah, took a picture of that. Now, I can't take a picture of what's behind us because it's gaming tables everywhere. We're not allowed to do that. But there are people gambling all around us. There's much activity. There's people at tables next to us looking at us like, why do these two dummies have headsets on?
Headsets on, yeah. Look a little crazy.
But, yeah. Now, let's make it very clear. We are not actually staying here in this hotel. This is the high-dollar hotel that we are only working at.
Yes.
Our place is a little down the street.
Yeah, so the difference of what you said was like $600 a night as opposed to a $90 night, at ours. But it's still a nice hotel where we're staying. The staff is, definitely very giving and been very nice to us, But yeah, it's a little bit level of difference, where
everybody's super polite over there, though.
Unfinished elevators as opposed to the nice elevators over here. There's an elevator right across from my room that, for the most part, you walk in and it looks like it's made of a wood frame. I think John's afraid to take that one. He's walked the long route just to get away from that elevator. I have been a little bit afraid. I'm not gonna lie.
To tell you about the Solaire. And Luke Barnott was the one that pointed this out. We ran into him a couple nights ago.
Yeah.
We were having cold beverages. Of course, he was not. He is.
No, he had some hot tea.
He had some hot tea. We should make that clear. We did run into him not far from where we're sitting right now, actually, just a bar over there. And he was pretty much laughing at us being, being drunken idiots, basically, is what it boiled down to. But he was the one that pointed out that this place is so nice. They have the most beautiful women in the world dressed in blue dresses all throughout the property, and their only job is to just say hello to you.
Yep, and look good, and just stand by whatever.
That's luxury. Like, we live in Vegas. We've got some nice properties.
Yes.
We don't have any properties where there are just hot women in blue dresses just there to say hello.
Just to say hi, yeah. It's like, oh, hey, I could be walking to the restroom, and it'd just be a ho-hum, and all of a sudden, hi. I'm like, wow.
Thank you.
This walk was much better.
As we were leaving the PR room earlier, I saw there was one like in the conference center. Like, there's nothing even over there right now. There's just chick just sitting there saying hello to people.
I like it.
Not bad.
Good old blue dresses. Get with it, Vegas. Blue dresses.
I guess I wanted to point out this is kind of a special trip for you, right? I mean, we had been talking about it for a long time.
Yep,
we knew that the Philippines was probably on the radar, but I guess to peel back the curtain on your personal life a little bit, it kind of means a lot for you to be here.
Yeah, being a quarter Filipino and have some Filipino blood in me, to think that there was ever a possibility that I'd get a chance to come here, not being a wealthy individual, myself, you're very lucky and fortunate enough, to get a chance to come over to a place that's part of your heritage and to see stuff. So, yeah, it's amazing, and I was telling you about, when I was getting ready to land, you start thinking about everything. Recently my grandmother passed away, and, she's full Filipino, and, not having the closest relationship with her or whatnot, and, and you start thinking about coming here, and you start thinking about family, and then you get all emotional. And then I told you the damn channel that I was on listening to with the map, because it shows you how close you're going to get. It's playing all these sappy love songs and all this other love ballads. And I'm like starting to get emotional on the plane before I land. And I'm like, what is going on? But, that's was unique and why I was so glad to actually get to come on this trip, because this is, it's funny when you're a kid and you're a little different, you look a little different. You take for, as you're older, you take for granted when you're like,
Right.
yes, you know it's your heritage and you're proud of it. But when you're a young kid, you're not quite sure. You go through that phase, like that, oh, I want to be like everybody else. Then as you get older, you embrace the differences and you welcome that. And so to get a chance to come and see what it's all about and see the people that, hey, if things were one little bit different, maybe I would have lived here. You never know. But it's incredible here. I mean, the food's here, the good here, the people here. There's beautiful women. There's blue dresses all over the place.
I thought the reason that you got emotional on the plane was you were stuck in middle seat for 13 hours.
Oh, don't get me started. Yes, people. One of the great things about how Jon asked me to come on this trip, pretty much I didn't think I was coming on this trip. So, lo and behold, some things kind of worked out, and the guy that was originally going to be coming couldn't come on this trip. So John's like, hey, you want to come to Manila? I'm like, are you serious? Of course I want to come. Well, let's look at some flights. And the next thing I notice, oh, wow, there's only middle seats. I'm like, middle seats? 13 hours? I'm like, Jon, I don't know if I could take this trip. I don't know if I could do it. And he's pretty much like, are you serious? Like, who are you? Where's the guy I know? Because he'd never pass up on a trip, And, so lo and behold, I manned up and did the trip, middle seat. And, it wasn't so bad, because it could have been worse. If it was 3 Americans sitting in the seat, we'd probably been a little bit bigger and it would have been a little bit more cozy. But, luckily enough, I had two wonderful skinny Asians next to me, so it wasn't so bad. But, boy, I'm telling you, I am 100%, I'm an aisle seat. I know there's a lot of people that they swear by the windows and they swear by, the aisles. But, I mean, nobody swears by the middle seat. Nobody swears by the middle seat. But, it could have been worse. But, I survived. I made it. But, man, and I still got to do it on the ride back. So,
well, hopefully we enjoy our time here, so you don't have to think about that. Well, it's honestly, it's been kind of a rough trip for me too. No complaints. It's been great. I mean, I was in Adelaide, Australia last week, Manila, Philippines this week. Really cool to be able to go to both those places. There's a lot of people that'll never be able to do it. But I did have to miss my son's 3rd birthday, which was Tuesday, May the 12th. My boy turned 3 years old, and in fairness, we had a great time the week before. We had a nice big party, and we had gone to Disneyland for a family vacation. But it was definitely tough to miss my son's birthday, and I'm not going to do it again, man. I think from now on, when it comes around, if there's a big trip that needs to be done, I'm just going to have to pass and stay home, because I know that's the most important thing to do. So, Tuesday was a tough day, but hey, listen, life goes on, work goes on. I apologize to my son for missing his birthday, but we won't do it again. I'll just say that. I guess let's talk about getting here. It's funny. I got here Monday night, flew straight from Adelaide. Got here Monday night, and as you said, we're staying in the Golden Phoenix Hotel, which is not quite finished yet. It's a new property.
Work in
and
progress.
It's very, very close to the Solaire here. It's a huge discount. It's one of the reasons we both could go, because I could find a hotel that was cheap enough that we could both afford to do it. And it's nice to have a second person. I mean, for people that don't know, I mean, we do interviews and we take photos and we take video, and to do everything at once is really, really tough. So having somebody there helps a lot, and so that's why I wanted to have you here, and so we can enjoy a nice frosty San Miguel.
Of course.
But it was funny because I got here and I was exhausted from the Adelaide show. You get tired, and then absolutely could not find the hotel at all. So we drove around literally 30 minutes. Pulling over and asking everybody. I pulled it up on Google Maps. That didn't quite work either. It was a little bit scary because there was some English, but not a lot of English.
Right.
And I was like, I'm never going to be able to find this property, and I'm exhausted, and I just want to take a shower and go to bed. So it's interesting. So finally found the place, and it has actually really, and it's going to be really nice when they finish it. It's going to have a pool. You can see they're still building the building around it. It's going to have everything there. It's going to be really cool, but it was a little bit of a challenge to get started because I didn't think I was ever going to get to the hotel.
Yeah, and I got to give props and kudos to the UFC staff, who was very, very helpful and enabled us to get on some transportation to get here, because it is very, very intimidating going into that out of the airport. You see the cabs, and if you do a little research before, you got the yellow taxis, which are one sort of fare. You got the the white taxis, which are a set fee, but it's more expensive. And then you got buses, you got jeepneys, you got so many different ways to get there. And like the last thing you want to do for me, it was a 13-hour trip from after the LA, which was like an hour flight.
Right.
That's nothing. You don't even think about that. Up and down. Then 13-hour to Seoul, and then a little layover in Seoul, and then another 4-hour flight after that. Then after that, your brain's kind of fried a little bit. And the last thing you're trying to think of is, like, how do I get in a cab? How do I get over there? You know? And if you don't research, it's one of those things you wouldn't know that, oh, there's a taxi table that you're supposed to go to, and then you get this coupon that kind of keeps track of what tab you're on and where you're supposed to be going, and it's supposed to help communicate how to get to this one particular location. You know, so it's very unnerving, you know. So
and there's no way I'm jumping on one of those jeepneys.
Oh, dude, that's crazy.
And I had never seen these before. I mean, I guess they're probably used in other cities. I don't know why they're so prevalent here. But the preferred method of transportation, it almost seems, is what they call a jeepney, which is, I mean, basically like an extended Jeep.
It's like a stretched out Jeep with like a door in the front. The back door is kind of open. And what I did notice on some of the ones is because they've kind of taken to make them decorated and like murals on the side, I guess to make it less weird and freaky and more like inviting. But to them, I guess maybe it's not weird and freaky to them.
Nah,
that's life. It's more for us where it's just like, wow, that's so unique. And here we're snapping pictures. The guys are like, that'd be like taking a picture of like back home in Columbus. It'd be like a COTA bus. Look at the weirdo taking a picture of like the Metro bus. Like, what a freak. Dummy.
Well, just to let you know, listeners, we've got interviews with Jon Anik and Miesha Tate, so we'll have both of those. But just want to kind of get you caught up on what's been going on this week. First of all, I guess let's just get your initial impression of the Philippines, Kenny. I mean, I know, like you said, hot. That's it. I mean, that really is literally the first thing you need to do to describe it, right?
Oh, my Lord. I mean, the airport, usually, you get off the plane, you get a little sort of a feel. I kind of felt walking up that ramp, you could feel the heat kind of coming inside a little bit, but there's nothing like when you first walk out that the humidity level, what is it, like 60% humidity or maybe higher, it just, you feel it weighted on your shoulders. But everybody else here, I mean, everybody's skinny. I'm like, man, I'm going to drop 20 pounds off this flight, off this trip just from sweating. But, I mean, it's sunny. It's been nice. We haven't had any rain or anything like that, but hot, humid. And
super hot and humid.
We saw bugs the other night. They have bugs.
Did see some
bugs. We'll talk a little bit about that from the open workout.
I will say, it's very hot and humid. I'm interested to see the fights. Now, the arena is a very new, modern arena, Mall of Asia arena. But I did hear that it gets warm inside there, which wouldn't shock me. I mean, it's difficult to air condition a building that big, especially with, from what I'm hearing, it's probably going to be 11 or 12,000 fans in there on Saturday night. So I did hear it gets a little warm. It's not going to be like Brazil where the arenas are open air, and so it gets hot. So we're not going to have that, but it is supposed to get hot. I guess you're what, in Manila for about 5 minutes before you burn your mouth?
Yeah, and this kind of goes on to the whole sleep deprivation a little bit, like I'm not the best sleeper on planes. I know some people that get on there, they either take a pill and they fall asleep or they do whatever. I don't know. I think part of it's excitement, part of it just, I don't know, don't want to snore too loud and wake up the person next to me,
Awfully considerate.
So I don't sleep a lot on the planes, So, by the time I got here, I was real tired. And after we kind of settled in, we go to get some food. And John, having been here like a day or two before, kind of has the lay of the land of what's around our hotel. So we walked by a couple little mini marts or whatever, and we decided to stop at Sbarro, which
nothing more traditionally Filipino than Sbarro pizza.
Than Sbarro pizza. And so we go in to get there, order some pie. It was a big stuffed. It was a what do they call it? Philly cheese steak.
It was huge. Yeah.
It was huge. It was delicious. But I'm going looking for a fork, and trying to find something. All they have is these spoons in this little metal container off to the side. Little did I notice the sign that said something about hot container or something along those lines. Something, that but didn't make it seem like, hey, by the way, this is a hot spoon. Grabbed the spoon, felt completely fine in my hand. Proceeded to scoop up some of the sauce just because, hey, there's sauce on the side of a pizza. Who puts sauce on the side of a pizza? Thinking it's maybe marinara. Put it in my mouth and realize in a split second later that whatever that heated sign that I read next to the spoon thing meant the spoon container was heated, and literally, even though the base of the spoon was not hot, the actual spoon part was so scalding hot and just literally burned my mouth, both sides of my lips. Gave me these nice, full, luscious lips that I think everybody goes and tries
Kylie
to,
Jenner lips is what I've been told.
to get collagen lips or whatever. So yeah, it was a little bit of a rude awakening. It kind of snapped me back to reality.
Welcome to the Philippines.
Yeah, welcome to the Philippines. Oh, you didn't want your lips burned? Oh.
So after that, we basically went right over. You were here just a couple hours before we headed over to open workouts. Open workouts were on Wednesday night at the Mall of Asia. It's all this one huge complex. The Mall of Asia arena, where the fights are going to be on Saturday night, is basically connected to this huge Mall of Asia. Just a massive complex. It's got to be one of the biggest malls in Asia. I heard somebody say it was the biggest, but I'm always scared when people say that. Maybe
it was big,
but it's definitely huge. This was kind of cool. Now, the open workouts that they do a lot on the road, normally during the day, they actually did this one at nighttime. And I was told that was just because the traffic here is ridiculous, which it is. And it's be very difficult for people to get there and difficult for people to get out of work. So they did them at night, basically. But it was in kind of an outdoor amphitheater, I guess what you would consider.
Unique.
It's part of the mall. And I think they called it the music hall, which I guess they do, concerts.
Yeah.
It made sense because there were seats and everything. But was really cool. It made for a cool scene because you had people kind of lining the balcony and then,
the upper
sitting on the
levels
floor
and then
area.
on the lower part, yeah.
Really cool. The thing that initially struck me was we've heard about the passion of the Filipino fight fans for a long time and how the UFC has wanted to come here to Manila and to the Philippines for a long time. And they said, listen, there's a high demand. And we've seen it. I've seen over the years, like George St. Pierre will come here and there'll be this massive people turn out. Brandon Vera is obviously a national hero. Mark Munoz, another one as well. But I kind of felt that, and it's making me excited for Saturday night because I definitely sense the passion. And the other thing I really took from the open workouts themselves was just the welcome that Mark Munoz got, man. It's knowing that this is going to be his final fight, knowing that he's hanging things up after that, and he's always been connected to his Filipino heritage, and I think we always knew that he was going to be it. But just seeing it firsthand and seeing how emotional kind of he was, just this smile from ear to ear that you could tell, even though he's always a generally happy guy anyway. You could just tell that it really meant a lot to him as people were just mobbing him.
Sure were. It was definitely one of those situations when you kind of see where, a lot of times when fans get really excited, the barrier starts moving, starts getting pushed back a little bit. That literally was one situation where, it was like, wow, these guys wanted to get as close as they could to him, and it was neat to see it because...
And you were right. It was literally right around you.
It was literally, bumping the camera, bumping the tripods. At the very end, when they started making that last dash, when they knew it was about over, I literally had to lift my camera and hand it off to the security guy on the other side of the barricade just for the fact that, they were moving. I was like, I got to get out. I'm going to get trampled here.
That's why I was set up on the other side of the stage. We were basically told by the PR team, like, listen, we both have cameras, and we were both trying to get footage of the open workouts, and we were told, listen, you can't really be in front because you'll block people's views. So we sat on opposite sides. You were on the side where Mark was and where the fighters were walking out. And I guess maybe that's why I enjoyed it a little bit more because I was watching from afar.
Right.
I was on some steps. I was elevated. I had nobody around me. Meanwhile, you were being nearly trampled to death.
Yes, and that brings up a point. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't talk about pet peeves, but you brought up the point, and now I'm going to throw it out there for all the internet, which loves to flame things and see things. As John pointed out, and this is for anybody that maybe ever does camera work and does other sort of things. When you work an event like that, the UFC says, all right, here's your spot. Stay here. Don't get in front of people. Do whatever. This is your spot, and you get here, and we're thinking, all right, cool, here's our locations. Granted, fast forward, to as the event goes on, pretty much the media just said heck with it, and they went up and stood up wherever. But we put up this another event, and we'll talk a little bit about it. We got to see the new Octagon girl. Red De La Cruz was introduced yesterday, the first I guess Filipino, even though Ariane Celeste has heritage with that as well.
She's a quarter Filipino also.
Yeah, you gotta love the quarter Filipinos. Ariane, hey, what's up? We can have a little. I don't know what the mathematics would be after that. 1/16th or something. We get together. We can work that out. We can do that math. But some of the people online were like, "Oh man, why did the camera guy move over to the front and get in front of there?" And you want to flame back and be like, "I did read the comments. I fucked up. I read the comments." All right, maybe
Don't
that's a
ever
faux
read
pas.
the
You don't read the
comments.
comments. But now that I did, this is our podcast, so I can choose to vent. The guy's like, oh, why didn't you move the front? All you're showing is her butt and her backside. Which one? Hey, what's wrong with
her
that?
butt and her backside?
Like, seriously? Oh, you're gonna bitch and complain? But yeah, and you want to write back, hey fucker, this is where they told me to stand, and this is the shot you get. Like, I'm sorry you've never worked one of these things before. It's, but next time, I mean, granted, who doesn't want to say, all right, I'm going to sit right in the middle? Sorry, everybody. How many people you think showed up for this thing? Because at first I wasn't quite sure, but as it went on, I mean, there was a lot of people.
There was a lot.
So it wasn't like I wanted to, I'm going to move to the center, and block, wherever. You kind of get given what you get, but it was hectic over there. It was crazy because after a while, everybody in the Filipino media over here just said, heck with it. He's standing up. Why can't I stand up? And in all fairness, even the UFC staff sort of said that would happen. They're like, oh, how are we going to juggle this? We tell you that you guys can sit here, but how do I tell them?
And we always say we don't want special treatment. We're just trying to be strategic about where we're placed and whatever. So you can't argue.
We do want special treatment. I'm just saying. No, I'm just kidding. We don't want special treatment. Yes, we do.
That's great. So that was the open workouts. I thought it was good. Anytime the UFC goes to a new market, they always try to do something public. So, make a little spectacle out of something. We see it in the U.S., like, for instance, I think the next U.S. show we have, other than Vegas, well, let's take Vegas. Next week in Vegas, for instance, I doubt there will be any kind of big workout session. Maybe there's something in the A&B studios or whatever, MGM Grand, but nothing big and outdoors and public like this. This is something that they normally do on their own. Hey, can we get 2 more beers, please? Yeah? 2 more? Yeah, thanks. So it's not something you see a lot. But they really do, when they're in new markets, try to blow it up, and I thought they did a fantastic job of it. So that was cool. Outdoors, did get a couple of bugs. People were sweating a lot.
Boy, the bugs, yeah. I don't know. They were loving me, I think when we did our first inaugural podcast in Miami, I know the mosquitoes were loving on me then, but yeah, I don't know what the bugs were that were coming yesterday. They weren't really biting, but they certainly were.
They were big.
Hitting you. Yeah, because all of a sudden it felt like somebody was tapping me on my cheeks.
I was actually told before I came here that I should get a malaria shot, and
oh wow.
Yeah. But then I was told, if you're only in Manila, it's not that bad. But if you get out, like in the country, like you should really get a malaria.
No one told me that. What? They want me to get some malaria shit?
Well, it was kind of late. Apparently, you're supposed to take it like 3 weeks out, so it's too late.
So it wouldn't have happened.
I didn't bother to tell you because it was too late.
You're
anyway.
like, I'm sorry, the shot wouldn't have taken.
Thursday was Thursday is still Thursday. My days are screwed. First of all, my day is totally screwed up whenever I'm over here because it's 12 hours ahead of Eastern, 15 hours ahead of back home in Vegas. So it's always tough. But today was Thursday. Today is Thursday. But this morning
Tomorrow's Thursday for you.
Was
no, I'm just kidding.
But this morning was Ultimate Media Day. Kind of, I don't want to say uneventful. I mean, this is one of those cards where, Frank Yeager versus Uriah Faber, I'm pumped about. To me, honestly, I can't think of a lot of bigger fights you could put together that aren't title fights in the UFC. This is one of the biggest fights you could put together. But both respectful guys, both professionals, so not a lot of trash talking. Obviously, who's going to trash talk Mark Munoz? That's impossible. So it was just kind of uneventful. I think we knew that there weren't going to be any pushes or shoves or forehead to forehead or anything like that.
No Diaz salutes.
Yeah, no middle fingers going anywhere. We did, however, both get a chance to meet Ken Berger for the first time, who is the new director of Asia.
Very, very nice guy.
He's replacing Mark Fisher. And, like you said, very, very nice guy. Actually went out of his way to introduce himself, which is very kind of him to do. In retrospect, I was kind of thinking about it. I kind of regret a little bit not interviewing him, not doing anything formal. But the other thing, too, is I feel like when guys take over in new roles, especially new directors, you got to kind of give them a little bit to settle in and to kind of get to know their market and let's be honest, get to know the sport. I'm sure he's having to learn. He's been in sports and he's been in business for a long time, but it takes a while to really grasp what you're doing and what needs to be done and all those things. And so I kind of felt like let's just give him a little bit of time. And the next time we see him, we'll definitely make sure we sit down with him. Yeah,
and I kind of overheard that from the UFC staff as well, saying that he's very involved. He's, got his hands in everything, watching because this is a huge market to take over. I can only imagine. You want to do it right, and the last thing you want to do is like take time away from him. to do a little interview here when he's probably got his hands pretty full to make sure that this event goes off.
Definitely, and one of those things that, I mean, I don't know how much he knows about everything yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's still so much to learn. So, but listen, we found out that we are definitely going to be seeing him later this year in Tokyo, September 27th. It was announced just today that Roy Nelson will fight Josh Barnett. It'll be the conclusion of a reality series. I think it's a great fight for Japan. I mean, it's a fun fight anyway in the heavyweight division, but it's a great fight for Japan. That'll be September 27th in Tokyo, the morning time in Tokyo, so it'll air back on Friday night, September 26th in the United States. But
gotta love that. I know Roy's a big fan of Tokyo, so
he does. He loves it. So hopefully by then we'll be able to talk to him. I think by then he'll definitely have a better understanding of what's going on. And it did sound like maybe still sounds like the UFC is hopeful they'll go to Korea for the first time this year. So you've actually been to Korea, the airport anyway?
Well, the airport at least. They have a very, very nice Asiana Airlines club. So but no, the airport was actually pretty neat. It was actually pretty decent size. It's nice, clean, a lot of little choices of things to look at. Unfortunately, we got there very early, so a lot of places were closed down. But no, it was beautiful. I mean, it definitely, if that was any indication of what the rest of the place is like, I think it's worth checking out and seeing.
I'm excited.
So.
That's why Justin Park is a big fan of Seoul. He always says it's a great town. So we just got another round of San Miguel's delivered, so I think we want to enjoy a couple of these frosty beverages. So let's start the interviews. Again, we're going to start out with Jon Anik. As I said, we'll have Miesha Tate later as well. But let's talk about Mr. Anik briefly before we run this interview. Guy's been with the UFC 4 years now. I mean, man, does time fly by?
Bro, yeah. I can't believe
yesterday
that. Really?
He was being
4 years?
introduced. Yeah,
wow.
And now it's 4 years.
One of the best people they definitely sort of scalped from ESPN or whatnot.
Yeah.
What a good dude, man. He really took to what he's doing, and man, he's awesome. I love hearing him call a show.
Yeah, he talks about leaving ESPN. Obviously, that was a big decision for him, and I really wanted to get him on because just give him a chance to talk about he's got a new podcast as well. Him and Kenny Florian, obviously good friends of ours, are doing a new podcast, and then also just to let him kind of talk about what he does. I think it's funny how much shit we'll say that the broadcasters get online. I see the online community kind of hating on mistakes they make or things they say or how they handle things, but I know you can speak from experience. Man, Jon puts in the work.
Oh, he sure does.
It's all about the research. And that
does
sort of
his
thing.
research, and Stan is another person that's a good example of that, and that's why I think you can tell when he gets in there. I mean, he's ready to call things because he's been doing his research. Even where a lot of times, we get done with work and, our first inclination, of course, is to get frosty beverages or whatnot. But I've seen the guy work the media things, do the whole day, and then go back to his room. And what is he going to do? I mean, of course he's going to call his family because he loves his kid, and he talked a little bit about missing his girls as well. He came from the Australia show as well, were you guys. So, I mean, that's a lot. I mean, I respect you guys for having to take those long roads, on the road, but those long times on the road. But, yeah, I mean, the guy's, he's pulling a full day, and then he's going back to his room, talk to the family, and then he's researching the game, and you could tell guys that do that stuff because they don't stutter. They don't sound like a bunch of jackasses up there calling the show. And then to hear people say, oh, this guy, this, I take it personal because I see him, I see them working. I just want to, again, maybe that's me reading the comments again, but,
Never read the comments.
You want to take it personally because, it's hard to find a nicer guy. I mean, Jon's always been a gentleman, and I wish the best for that podcast. What dynamic duo right there,
yeah,
man.
It's a great one.
And
the other thing too, and he talks about it, is it's funny, but it was funny kind of to see it start, but to see where it's gone is pretty interesting. And he talks about it, but his passion for pronunciation, making sure that fighters' names are said right, it's something that he came to the company and just ran with it, and he kind of tells a story of kind of where that started and where it's gone. And I think people might get a kick out of that because, I mean, this guy is literally leading the charge behind making sure that everybody in the UFC, and media included, know how to pronounce these guys' names.
Yeah, not like the guy that asked Gerard to do the, the hey, can you say this for me? And that's a funny video. If you want to check a funny little video, you go to the Facebook and check out the MMA Junkie
MMA Junkie's
video.
Facebook page.
Yeah, you see this guy ask Gerhard Musasi.
He calls him.
Did I say the right? But he called him Gerard multiple times.
He called him Gerard. Yeah. I always said Gegard.
Yeah,
well,
with a harder G
initially,
sounding.
I'm not going to lie. I thought it years and years ago. I thought it was Jagard.
Jaguar.
And then I think in Strikeforce, I think I used to call him Jagard Mousasi like years and years ago. And then in Strikeforce, when he started fighting in the States, and it was obvious that it was Gegard.
Yeah, I always thought it was like
Gegard
weird, too.
But and then they announced the guy at the open workouts the other night announced him as Gayhard.
Gayhard. And he said that he had been practicing and asked him. And then you kind of hear it in the video, too. The guy's like, Gerard, can you say this? He's like, hey, this is Gerard Mousasi. And then he tends to do a little fumbling.
It took him a while to get the audio ID. Yeah, definitely worth checking out on Facebook. If you didn't see it, we just put up a little clip. There's no story around it. There's no nothing. It was just funny, and we thought it should be shared with the world.
Yes.
So it's on the MMA Junkie Facebook page. So, all right, well, listen, with all that said, we are going to enjoy this frosty beverage that we've got.
Yes.
Again, we're here at Solaire Resort and Casino in the Philippines. It's a fantastic property. The club is bumping behind us over here.
Yeah, they kind of kicked it up there a little bit.
So we are going to we're going to partake of this frosty beverage and enjoy that. And in the meantime, we'll let you guys listen to Jon Anik. So this is the MMA Roadshow. Really appreciate you listening. Everything good? I got water for you, too.
Dude, I like that shirt.
Thank you, brother. You like that?
Yeah.
It's like our uniform, man. They're like, hey, if we put a logo on it, will you wear a black polo? I'm like, so I don't even have to think about what I wear every day? I'm like, perfect.
Yeah.
All right, man. Let's get started. Listen, I'm here with my man, Jon Anik, who was kind enough to stop by and grace me with his presence. First of all, we are inside Ultimate Media Day here at this incredible resort. The Solaire is incredible here in the Philippines. Miesha Tate, Brian Caraway still over there holding shot. But I got to say, you had as big a crowd as anybody right here. Did they think you were Dave Schaller, or were they really coming for you?
I don't know who they thought I was. Maybe Kenny Florian, but, man, are they excited for the UFC to be in town and taking pictures with a few folks. They're like shaking, you know. When I tell my twin brother that people were shaking, taking a picture of me, he's just going to shake his head. But it is an incredible atmosphere, obviously. And, you know, this was a market that, as you well know, was on the UFC's radar for quite some time. Right. So we're finally knocking out Manila. Maybe South Korea will be next. But it's great to be here, dude. This Solaire is a palace. So I spent about a week in Adelaide, Australia, made a nice contribution to the casino there, and picking up right where I left off here at the Solaire Resort and Casino.
Yeah, right. They gotta get you away from these casino options. I think you like to go in and play a little bit.
Well, now that I don't live in Vegas, I gotta take my opportunities and I guess take my licks when they present themselves. So yeah, it did not go well at the blackjack tables in Adelaide. So hopefully we can rally here in Manila. But I have to say, before we get too deep into this, was there anything more obvious than an MMA roadshow featuring John Morgan in MMA? I know we talked about this before. It came to fruition, and congratulations. It was such a no-brainer, and it's good to see you doing your thing on this podcast. And I just got to imagine it's really going to be a successful project for you. I mean, obviously, you are the hardest working man in the business. I've said it a million times. 15 trips to Brazil for me is nothing compared to your almost 22. And it's good, obviously. I think it's going to be a great vehicle for you, great conduit for you, and I'm glad it's off the ground, man.
Thank you, brother. That means a lot to me. And I've been listening to your podcast, too. Obviously, I had a chance to call in from Poland at the very first show, which is cool. We had a couple cold beverages at the time. We had tipped a few back. But I'm loving the podcast. So let me ask you that. I mean, obviously, you're a busy man. You're running anyway. I mean, you're traveling as much as I am. What was the motivation behind wanting to do that?
You know, Kenny Florian and I had talked about doing it for probably 2 years. I'm almost embarrassed to say that it took that long to get it off the ground. But my background, as you know, is in radio, and I just wanted to get back to it. And part of the reason why we're not on camera is because I feel like we spend enough time on camera, and candidly for me, radio doesn't really have cameras. At least it didn't when I was growing up and cutting my chops. So that was really the motivation for me, was to have a longer form platform. Kenny obviously has UFC tonight, and you always have Twitter, but to me, I wanted a longer form platform to talk about these fights after they end. So that was really sort of what was behind the podcast. I think the big challenge for us is to have a weekly presence. You know,
right.
As you know, with these podcasts, whether it comes to monetizing it or sponsors or just having a presence with fans, you really need to be weekly. And that's going to be the big challenge for me and Kenny, obviously, with our schedules. He was in Adelaide and went back to Los Angeles. I'm here in Manila, so we weren't able to do one this week. But hopefully we'll be able to get back there Monday. And we will have a permanent time slot. You know, we will be Mondays 4 to 6 Eastern. So at least we have the time slot. Now it's just trying to make sure that we're there every week, because if you do take a couple weeks off, I think you lose your momentum.
Completely, yeah, and that's kind of the struggle I'm having too, just getting started. But I'm enjoying it, man. And I'm the same as you. It's hey, would I love to monetize it and broadcast it and all those things someday? Yeah, but more than anything, I think it's just a chance to sit down and talk MMA, right?
No
I mean, it's what we'd be doing anyway. And you really, you didn't just get into this business because it was a job. I mean, you're a professional broadcaster, but you really have a passion for MMA.
No doubt about it. I took a lot of criticism when I left ESPN, as you well know, but maybe your listeners don't. That was always the destination for me. I spent most of my professional life trying to get to ESPN, and once I got there, it was just trying to become a full-time employee, get some stock options with Disney, and off you go, But for me, once I discovered MMA as I was doing a boxing radio show, I was just blown away. Again, I was a novice. When I saw that Elite XC debut, Renzo Gracie, Frank Shamrock, Carano, Kedzie, Bigfoot fought Cabbage that night, Crazy Horse Bennett, KJ Noons, that show was the first time I had ever seen mixed martial arts live in person. And I'll never forget that flight home. I just couldn't stop thinking about the sport and how I could involve myself more in it. So that became a goal of mine, and then obviously it led to MMA Live on ESPN2. But for me, this was the only job I would have left ESPN for. So I don't know that there's any greater statement I could make about my passion for MMA and the UFC than the fact that I left what really was a dream job in order to take this one,
That's awesome, man. It is. Everybody wants to get to ESPN, I think, so to walk away from that is a big step. Talk about fight week. What's your week like? I mean, this is a little different because you basically just had to get early because it didn't make any sense whatsoever to fly from Australia back. But what's fight week like for you? What's preparation like for you? Because I think I really think some people think you guys just show up, put on a headset, and start working, right?
Yeah.
Not the case whatsoever. What's fight week like for you?
Well, as you know from calling fights, you can never do enough preparation. If all of a sudden the fight card got delayed 5 hours, we could fill that time. And as most play-by-play guys will tell you, you probably use about 30% of what you prep. So a big thing that I do is I take all of the bios from the UFC and I actually handwrite them all to try to commit some of that stuff to memory and to refresh myself with some of these guys. Because candidly, I don't have a steel trap brain like Joe Rogan. I forget a lot of this stuff, And for me, I need to do that every show to remember these guys. I think I've called about 700 UFC fights right now, but when you're doing, 40 shows a year, they all can blend together. So there's a lot of watching film, and I just ingest as much content on the internet as humanly possible. Obviously, I'm an MMA junkie P1, so that's my number one destination. And then I hit all the other websites as well, just trying to take in as much content as humanly possible. I talked to a few managers and trainers. It's an interesting balance when it comes to getting too close to fighters, because part of the issue for us is not wanting to get too close, not wanting to necessarily have personal relationships with these guys. Not that it would affect a broadcast. I mean, maybe subconsciously it could, but I really, even if I was calling a fight that Kenny Florian was involved in, if he's getting his ass kicked, I'm going to call it like I see it. But it's a balancing act for us, because in any line of work, you get close to people. And when I work with Daniel Cormier and Dominic Cruz and Brian Stann, you get close to these guys. And I was honestly really fearful going into that Ryan Bader-Daniel Cormier fight, because I'm so close to DC, having worked with him so much, that it sort of was a little bit uncomfortable, being assigned to that main event. So it's a balancing act for us, not trying to get too close, but to get close enough to get information. So really, it's just a matter of getting as much information as possible. Just before I came down here, I was revoicing a couple things as all the fighter name pronunciations came in. We were a little bit wrong on a couple of those, so I just redid the Zhang Lipeng combo upstairs before we came down here. And, it's just a matter of prep. After I'm done with you, we have a format meeting and then a pronunciation meeting. And then it's just nonstop prep. What a lot of people don't realize is the traffic copping nature to what I do. And there's just so much more that goes into the broadcast for me, maybe not so much for the analyst, that doesn't involve mixed martial arts and calling fights. It involves throwing to break and, reading commercial spots and promos and things like that. So, I'll do a lot of prep on UFC 187 this week, because if we get a couple quick finishes and we have to fill, we might talk about every fight on that main card. So there's a lot that goes into it. And honestly, some people call it cramming. I don't, but I'm prepping right until I put the suit on and make my way to the arena, honestly.
And it's funny because, it's social media being what it is. If you guys make a mistake, something said silly, I see all the hate and all that, how hard is it to for people not to realize how much work and how much effort? Because you talked about throwing the promos and stuff like that. I hear all Goldie gets hated on all the time, but when you listen to that guy, he's smooth as silk, man. He just tosses right to where he needs to go, does everything. So is that tough when maybe you make a little mistake, maybe you make an error, and then all of a sudden it blows up on Twitter? Because I know you're there, I know you're online.
No, for sure. And I think you learn to just accept that. I'll never forget when I did my first UFC show in Nashville. I was on such a high after the show, and I went back to my room and pulled up the Twitter, and I was like, holy piss, man, just an avalanche of hatred. I think there was only one death threat in there, so that was pretty good. But, yeah, you develop a thick skin having been in the business. And, I say this all the time. It may sound trite, but everything in life is about repetitions. And I feel like now that I have 600 reps as opposed to none when I step foot in the octagon in Nashville, your performance is going to be better. But that's just something that comes with the territory. My big fear is that I'm going to be doing a post-fight interview and forget the guy's name. When you've got 20 Brazilians on a fight card and 3 Silvas and 2 Leandros.
Right.
And, sometimes I'm afraid that I'm going to forget a name. So that's my big fear. But, I haven't had any major glaring screw-up. I remember people were on me pretty good after, I believe, Husamar Polyata submitted Mike Pierce, and I didn't question him holding on too long. And there was a lot of criticism after that. But, a major fuck-up is an eventuality. I mean, honestly, that's just the way it goes.
Right.
It hasn't happened yet, but I'm not blind to the fact that eventually it's going to happen. And at the end of the day, you're a father. You just do the best job you can, and you go home to your kids, and you forget about it shortly thereafter.
That's it, man. That's the way to do it. It's funny you're talking about the pronunciation guides coming in and a pronunciation meeting, which is awesome. I didn't know that was happening.
Yeah.
But I feel like, and maybe it's me wrong, I feel like you were like one of the leading guys really pushing that. I know that's always been a big thing. So, A, I want to ask, is this a result of your efforts? And second, where did that come from that you were the first guy in, 13 years of them over at the company or whatever, the first guy to go, dude, we got to get this right?
Well, as humbly as I can say it, it was a byproduct of my efforts. This was a big initiative of mine. I'll never forget, I was at ESPN. We have a pronunciation guide for everything you could possibly imagine, except there wasn't an MMA pronunciation guide when I was there. So here I am starting, not really knowing a lot of the fighters, and there was no resource for that. So by the time I had left, we had an MMA pronunciation guide at ESPN. But, yeah, when I got to the UFC, Stipe Miocic was Stipe Miocic, and it just didn't sound right to me. So slowly but surely, we've built up now a library of all these guys pronouncing their own names to tape, which is really the only way to do it. I'm hoping at some point we can take a page out of the NFL's book and have the guys actually at the beginning of a fight card, say, Tony Romo, Eastern Illinois, or whatever it is.
Not a bad idea.
So the fighters, so the fans can actually hear the fighters pronouncing their own names. But, yeah, it was a huge initiative of mine. And, I think there's nothing worse for a fighter when you finally get to the UFC stage to beat Josh Salmon. When your entire family is tuning in, you want to beat Josh Salmon.
That's funny.
So obviously it's been a big initiative of mine. And I'll tell you honestly, though, we're still not out of the woods. I remember doing Stipe Miocic's fight against Stefan Struve, and I got it wrong. I was saying Stipe Miocic, and if you actually listen to him say it, it's Stipe Miocic. So we finally got that right for his fight with Mark Hunt, and, I joke with him about it all the time, but we finally got the syllabic emphasis right, and, again, at the end of the day, it's just another way to respect these fighters. I never cared much when people screwed up my name, but I'm not a professional athlete, and I think for these guys, that's the least we can do,
It's pretty cool, and it's you can filter down to us, too, because there's the UFC has launched, like, a media access page, and on that media portal, those little MP3s that they make for you guys, they have them for us, too, so we can hear them just as well, and I think it's a great thing.
Yeah, well, for, like, Joanna Jacek, I'll still pronounce it. Right, I mean, and for me, it's like another chance to practice it right here on the MMA Roadshow, but for me, you can't say these names enough, and I really think the only way to commit it to memory, and, because I'll write the names, and I don't need to write phonetics on fight night because I've said it 50 times, so Ning Guang Yo, is written as Ning Guang Yu on my card, but I know it's Guang Yo because I probably said it 150 times by the time, we step into the arena on fight night. So, practice makes perfect. It sounds cliche, but that's really the truth. And I think the more you say these names, the more, you commit them to memory.
You're not the newcomer anymore, man. You're not the new guy. You've been around for what is it, 4 years now?
Yeah, in my 4th year, and, I'm signed through the Fox deal. So my deal goes basically right through November 1st of 2018. So hopefully I'll be here for a while. I mean, of course, they can fire me at any time, and that's sort of the reality of the broadcasting world. But hopefully I can stick around and, just continue to work on it. We've never had a perfect show. We never will. And you just try to limit the mistakes and get better every time out. That's really our focus. And, hopefully it translates on fight night,
It's not. I know it's not the job you originally signed up for. Things were a little different. You were supposed to live in Las Vegas. You were supposed to do the Ultimate Fighter every week. Now you're the guy guy I probably see on the road as as
Yeah.
much as I am. You're traveling the world. I know it's tough because you're away from your kids. We have a lot of conversations about family and what it's like. But what's it like? Let me ask. I mean, are you enjoying it? And what's the best part of the job to you?
The best part of the job is when the lights come on fight night. I have said to you off the air, the best job I ever had in broadcasting was The Ultimate Fighter Live. That one live season of The Ultimate Fighter in Vegas was the most fun I've ever had in TV. I would put that up against any college football or boxing assignment at ESPN or any live atmosphere for the UFC. That was just, I thought, such a special way to take The Ultimate Fighter to the next level, and I hope and pray that we get back to that again. I just thought it just had such an energy and a special feeling about it. So, yeah, I'm enjoying it. I'm not going to lie, man. I mean, when I signed up, every UFC fight night was in the United States, and, of course, my schedule has been predominantly international and outside of North America. So that has been a big adjustment for me. And, maybe it's not ideal, the timing in terms of having 2 young children, and maybe that's something that we assess going forward. But we did move to Florida, so with the 7 shows a year in Brazil, that makes things a little bit easier. And, hey, the best part of the job, honestly, is when you're away for 2 weeks, you come home and hug your kid, man. I mean, I think fatherhood really changes a lot of men, and Florian and I have a lot of chats about it. You and I have talked about it at length. It changes a lot of people. And, when I took this job, I had a 2-month-old, and at that age, dad really doesn't do much if the wife is nursing. So when I took this job, I wasn't really a father and a family man. Now I am, and it's a very real reality for me. And but no, I mean, this is the job that I wanted. Nothing has changed in the 3+ years I've been doing it. But when Dana White's your boss, man, any show could be your last. And I want to do right by him and Lorenzo and Frank, and that's the focus show in and show out.
It's funny. I think me and you were the only 2 men on the face of the earth pushing for Tough Live to come back. I love that show. It's first of all, I mean, look at the cast that it produced.
Yeah.
Look at the success they're having. But I love that format, and I'm loving the Ultimate Fighter right now. I will say the ATT versus Black Zillions,
yes.
The atmosphere of those fights is awesome. Like, that's something that you can't recreate, with the live format. But man, I just it being a real sporting event, alive, not taped, not months old, not everybody knew the results or whatever. It being live. I wish there was a way to make it happen, and maybe just like 8 fighters instead of so it's less grueling and less long.
Yeah, so there are a few issues with it. You need obviously a full TV crew, basically doing nothing but that for 13 weeks.
Yeah.
So from a financial standpoint, it is cost prohibitive.
That's
so
true.
Let's start with that. I'm not sure that money was a reason why they went away from the format, but that is a real factor. The other thing too is when you have a 6-week show, you can manipulate that reality content however you want. So you can take a soundbite that somebody says in week 2 and run it in week 7. And so there's a lot more freedom from a production standpoint for them to build characters the way they want to and to use those soundbites to have the optimal impact, So those are the 2 biggest challenges. But dude, I mean, I talked to friends and people in the industry like Kenny. They didn't want to DVR The Ultimate Fighter live and get to it later. They wanted to watch it live as if it was a UFC fight night. So to me, I know the ratings didn't necessarily back it up because we were buried on Friday nights, which, as you know, is the black hole in TV.
Right.
But to me, it was must-see television, and you had to watch it live. I mean, for Kenny Florian, who didn't watch any of it after his season live, he was watching live again. So I think for a lot of people, it sort of reignited their passion for The Ultimate Fighter. And hey, I remain hopeful, man. I would be glad to move back to Vegas if I could do that. But yeah, as you sort of alluded to, when I took the job, that was going to be a cornerstone of it, that 26 Friday nights a year, I would be hosting The Ultimate Fighter live. So obviously it only lasted 1 season, but made a lot of great memories, a lot of good friends, and nice to see James Vick a few days ago continue the winning ways of that fine cast. So many lightweights really are relevant from The Ultimate Fighter live,
No doubt. Well, there's really absolutely no reason to leave the Solaire here. This thing is beautiful.
Yeah,
Have you ventured out at all, or you have any plans to do anything?
The power of social media. I have one good friend out here. His name is Franco Mabanta, and he's a pretty connected guy. He took care of LeBron James when he was out here, so he's got some great dinner planned for us tonight. I think he was pushing the club scene hard. As a married father of 2, that isn't necessarily in my wheelhouse, not to mention that I got to call 12 fights here in about 48 hours, so I'm not sure we're going to hit the clubs necessarily, but man, Filipino women are absolutely beautiful. They're all over this place, and hopefully it'll be a nice dinner, maybe a couple cocktails after. But, yeah, we're going to get off the property for a few hours. But you're right, man. This place is absolutely unbelievable. And UFC doing us right with this location, that's for sure.
me and Cold Coffee, we're staying a couple doors over. We couldn't quite afford these swanky digs, but it's nice to come over here and work a little bit.
Yeah, man. No, this place is plush. The casino is great. It was only built in 2013, I believe, so it's a fairly new establishment. Obviously, the Mall of Asia Arena is a rock's throw from here, so we're excited to be here. These Filipino fans are just so excited. And, we had heard for a long time how excited they were to have the UFC, but you're the most well-traveled man in MMA. I'm sure you can speak to this. Until you really get where you're going,
right,
you don't really have your finger on the pulse of just how excited they are. Well, if this media room, this ballroom is any indication, they've been jonesing for this for a long time, and it should make for a pretty wild atmosphere here Saturday night, man.
I can't wait. Last thing I got for you, and I'm not going to ask a prediction or anything like that because I know obviously you got to call the fight and you got to be impartial, but this main event, I'm using the word super fight.
Yes.
To me, man, I think this is a super fight. And the other thing is I saw some criticism online. I actually got into kind of a little discussion on Twitter with Mark Raimondi, who just happened to be.
Yes, I read the whole thing.
Yeah, I think – tell me your thoughts on it. I mean, I guess maybe we have a different perspective because we do travel around the world. We do see these markets. I felt like this was a master stroke by the UFC, a genius move to take a big fight, a fight of this magnitude, because I think this is huge. I think outside of a title fight, I think this is about as big a fight as you can make in the UFC.
No doubt about it.
And to do it here, I think it's a hell of a way to kick off a new market.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I understand the counter-argument, but I'm on your side. Bottom line, Damian Maia, Ryan LaFleur, your 20th time to Brazil, that fight isn't going to sell, And when you're in a market like this, you have got to blow it out. Short of bringing a title fight here, this is the way you need to approach it. Yes, has this fight been lost on a few people in the United States? Yes, it has, but as you sort of mentioned in that back and forth, that really wasn't the goal for this show, because the bottom line is that they were going to turn out here in the Philippines if they had to come watch this at 9 o'clock in the morning, but they're not. They're catering to this market in prime time, so you got to wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning if you live in Vegas or LA to watch this fight, and you know what? Fans are gonna, because it involves two guys whose futures are in the UFC Hall of Fame. So this is as big as it gets for me. I've been fortunate to call one title fight. I think I did the Michael McDonald, Henan Brown interim title fight. I did Velasquez dos Santos 2 when Goldie fell ill. But this is as big an assignment as I've ever gotten. The only thing I'll say, at least as far as what happens inside the octagon, no one's ever racing to the window to bet against Frankie Edgar, but I have to admit I'm surprised by the betting line.
The odds are shocking, right?
I mean, the fact that Uriah Faber is plus 300 against anyone, here's a guy who has as many submission wins as Frankie Edgar has career wins, So this is as prolific a finisher as we have in the sport, as we have in any division across the UFC. Frankie should be favored, maybe 2-1, 2.5-1, but Frankie is a 4-1 favorite. I think it just has to be a byproduct of what he did to Cub Swanson in November, which to this point has been the most dominant individual performance that I have had the pleasure of calling. So I get why the odds makers maybe are putting the line there, but I am surprised that it hasn't been bet down a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we do go on record making picks. Obviously, we do our staff picks every week. I'm leaning towards Frankie Edgar. That's going to be my pick. But if I was putting some money, I just don't think I could lay those odds for Frankie against Uriah Faber. That guy's not going away, and he can finish a fight with his hands, and he can finish a fight with submissions.
And, I think it's interesting for a lot of people to see him back up at 145 pounds. That is a brutal cut for him down to 35. And, when you guys do your picks at MMAJunkie.com, I bet you're all going to be on Edgar. That is my prediction, that it will be consensus. But yet you're right. We talk so much in sports betting and in those circles. You're not betting the fighter. You're betting the number. And the value is not on Frankie Edgar at minus 400. Maybe if you want to throw him in a parlay, if you really feel that confident, but you sort of figure out where you think the line should be and you bet it accordingly. And to me, Uriah Faber shouldn't be plus 300 against any fighter south of 155 pounds. So I do think there's some value with the California kid, but obviously it's going to take a special performance to beat Frankie Edgar here in 2015. It's amazing. 5 years after hoisting the UFC gold at 155 pounds, he is still so clearly one of the best pound-for-pound guys in the game. It's remarkable what he's done, and they don't come much tougher, more classy than Frankie Edgar, and another obviously big spot for him here in about 48 hours, my man.
No doubt. I'm pumped up for it. Well, John, I know you got to run to your format meeting. I just want to thank you for stopping by. It's fun, man. I remember sitting in a Brazilian airport talking about you launching your podcast and me talking about my launching my podcast and getting it done and all that, and here we are. And it's funny because we would basically just be talking about the same thing anyway. We just have a pair of headsets on.
Yeah, well, we just didn't touch on the Dallas Cowboys, but time is short today. today. We'll get into that next time, I'm
Awesome,
sure.
brother. Well, want to plug the podcast, obviously, for you. Everybody knows, where they can find out. iTunes is where I get it. I think you got it online somewhere else as well.
Yeah, it's on iTunes. Thanks very much for the chance to do so. SoundCloud.com, we have it there as well. And we'll be back Monday, May 18th. I believe we're going to talk to Maria Burns-Ortiz, who wrote the book with Ronda Rousey.
Very
We've heard a
cool.
lot from Ronda. We wanted to hear from the other side. So we'll be talking to Maria Burns-Ortiz and hopefully Ray Longo as well, getting ready to make the trip west with Chris Weidman. So every Monday, 4 to 6 p.m., we are live. We do take calls. So hopefully it'll become, another outlet for MMA fans to talk to us. And obviously it's very therapeutic and enjoyable for us. So thanks very much, my man.
Awesome, brother. Thanks for stopping by, man.
Thanks for having me, Johnny.
All right, well, I hope you guys enjoyed that. Again, that was Jon Anik. This is the MMA Roadshow with John Morgan and Cold Coffee right here with me. And,
Yes. Good interview. Good interview.
Let me, Cold Coffee, you were, at one point, you were talking with Jon Anik about helping him launch his podcast,
Yeah,
right?
guy's smart. He knows what he needs to do. He's got his head on straight, and especially when it comes to all that kind of stuff. But, yeah, we had talked about it. He was like, yeah, I want to get a podcast. I want to do whatever. And, of course, he's the kind of guy you want to help do whatever, I mean, dude's he's shooting for the stars, man. And, yeah, we talked about it, and then, look at what he's doing now. It's much, it's definitely – it's funny because at first, he's like, oh, we'll just start a little bit. Then maybe someday be able to, get phone calls coming in or whatever. Guy comes out firing with Florian on there. They got live phone calls coming in. Sounds awesome. The TJ that he's got doing stuff for him. I mean, that's a top-notch team. I mean, but it sounds incredible. Yeah, I'm so excited for him. I mean, and the fact that we can have something going off to the side and have John come on and we can joke and laugh about it. Oh, yeah, man. Good stuff. I mean,
it is, man. John's a great guy. I mean, I see him on the road a lot, so we've developed a little bit of a friendship. Like I said, he's working a lot, and I'm working a lot, and our schedules don't always match up, but we certainly talk whenever we can. And, of course, we talk about MMA. Guy's got a passion for it. We both talk about family, being away from kids, as he mentioned. I think both of us are kind of doing our dream job. But there's definitely some sacrifice, not only from us for seeing our kid, but the family has to sacrifice as well. Each of our wives is on their own a lot and taking care of the kids. So we definitely have kind of a kinship there that we've always discussed. So a good dude, and I hope everybody enjoyed that, man. It was cool of him to take time out of his busy day to sit down.
And if you guys haven't listened to his podcast yet, it's worth the listen. I mean, go there. I mean, he's got great guests coming on, and him and Florian are pretty funny. I mean, just like when you listen to watch one of the shows, they got that good banter and joking aside. And how can you not laugh having Florian on there?
I ended up being the first caller in the history of that show, which is awesome. It's really funny. We were sitting around. It was me, Sandu, and Abby sitting around in Krakow, Poland, and we were excited to listen to the debut. We were like, oh, listen, it's the middle of the night. We're working. I think it was like 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. at night.
I think it was later than that.
It might have been.
I thought you guys were already pretty well deep in the frosty beverages.
We don't have to go there.
He says 10 p.m. I want to say it was closer, probably like 2 or 3 in the morning.
I think that now that you mention, I think that's probably a little more right.
I think it was.
Time kind of gets away from me sometimes, but I thought, hey, that would be cool to because I'm sure they were like, hey, is anybody listening to this thing or who's doing what? So it's cool to be able to call in. And it was funny because TJ answered the phone. TJ DeSantis, who's obviously their producer, he answered the phone to screen the call. And I was just like, hey, long-time listener, first-time caller.
Yeah.
And he was like, hey, so got on the phone, and that was a lot of fun. So
did he recognize your voice
No, I don't think he did right away. He kind of gave pause. He might have, because he gave pause like, what the hell are you saying?
You sound like the guy that always asks the first question at the post-fight press conferences.
Yeah, TJ's a good dude. They put me on, so that was fun. It was kind of a neat little footnote. That was a good time. So that was Jon. Next up is a woman who needs very, very little introduction. She is a top UFC women's bantamweight contender, Miesha Tate. Certainly one of the most popular fighters in the UFC. I mean, what can you say? She's popular because I think she's a beautiful woman. I think people
definitely
are,
a beautiful woman, but she's a stud, man.
But
I mean,
great.
She goes out there and gives her heart. I mean, you don't fucking tap when somebody's pretty much twisting your arm off. She's got way more balls and fucking more heart than I do. That's that's easily stated.
She is here in Manila as a guest fighter along with her boyfriend Brian Caraway. It's funny because I don't. Let's produce on the air here a little bit. I only have 2 headsets to do this. I mean, the headsets that we use for the podcast are not cheap.
Yeah.
And we have we're building. The show's building. The technology. But I actually wanted to have Brian Caraway on as well. If I'd have had a third headset, I would have had Brian Caraway on at the same time. And it was kind of funny because he was basically giving me shit too. He was like, maybe when I win some more fights, you'll ask me to be on the podcast. I was like, come on, man. So they're actually Las Vegas residents now, and so I'm going to get Brian Caraway on soon, maybe even as soon as next week if they're back in town. I like Brian. He catches a lot of grief. I think he's a good dude, man. I think he gets way too much grief, and I get it. People, you don't know him. You only know a little bit about him, and you make flash judgments or whatever. And I'm not saying the guy's perfect, but I think he's actually a nice guy, and hopefully we'll actually run into him later. And maybe
haters are gonna hate, people are like, oh man, I want to be by Miesha's side. Who's that guy? Oh, why does he got to be there? I hate him. I can know nothing about him. But I hate him. He's a good dude.
He was giving me a little grief, but he was nice enough to let me take his girlfriend for a few minutes and have some time with her. Demetrius Johnson is actually going to be a guest fighter. He hasn't actually made it into town yet. Alistair Overeem, who we saw in Australia, he's actually going to be back as well. So both those guys are coming along later this week. But sat down with Miesha for a little bit and just talked to her about the fight that she has coming up. Ironically enough, her opponent coming up this summer, Jessica Ai, was the guest fighter last week in Adelaide, Australia. So I thought it only right that we should sit down and talk to Miesha as well about the fight that's coming up and also about her constant connection to Ronda Rousey. I mean, this has been a big week for Ronda Rousey. I know I was sitting in the hotel room last night listening to her on Howard Stern. Listening to Ronda Rousey on Howard Stern.
Talk about how mainstream things have gotten. I mean, it doesn't get much more mainstream and big than Howard Stern.
Yeah, so I definitely wanted to ask Miesha about that. Ronda just had a book release as well. She didn't write the book, but she was a big part of it. She's the focus of it, and that's become a bestseller as well. So I wanted to talk to Miesha about her thoughts on all that, and kind of talk to her about the upcoming fight and about her constant comparisons and connections to Ronda Rousey. And so I think you'll be interested to hear what she has to say about that. So sit back, relax, enjoy the dulcet tones of Miesha Tate. And we're going to have a frosty beverage here at the Solaire Resort and Casino. Myself and Cold Coffee. You're listening to the MMA Roadshow. Listen to Miesha Tate, and we'll be back to wrap things up after that. I'm here with UFC Women's Bantamweight contender Miesha Tate. We are here in a beautiful ballroom in the Solaire, Manila, Philippines. How are you liking the Philippines so far? I was talking to Brian Caraway earlier, and he said you guys actually got out a little bit yesterday.
We did. And I'm not going to lie, when we first walked into this hotel, it was amazingly beautiful, but I felt like it was a step right back in Vegas because I walked in and I saw casino. I was like, oh, I didn't even leave. But no, when we got out and about on the bus, actually we took a taxi, we went way out into the more like poor area where we really got to see how the people live. And it's always just that really... It's like a reality check, it just makes you really appreciate everything that you have. Some people are living in boxes and shambles, and it's it's sad, but it's like I said, makes you really reevaluate everything and be really thankful. But we got to go out. We got to do some shopping. Went to the Mall of Asia, went to Green Hills, and hopefully we'll get to go out to the, I don't know how you pronounce it, but I think it's called the Ruse or Riza or something like that. It's a park here that's got a few monuments in it, so I want to go out and check that out.
That's cool. You've done a lot of these trips lately. The UFC uses you to help market and promote around the world. Is it something you enjoy? Is it something you've learned to deal with, or do you like, heck yeah, I'll go?
I love it. Both Brian and I are always the first to volunteer. So we talk to Reed and Dana and everyone, and we let them know like, hey, we love to do this. We love to get out there and see our fans that maybe can't even come to us. You know what I mean? They're not going to be able to make it over to the U.S. or come right to Vegas. So we get to travel around. We get a free trip to the Philippines and a free stay and food, money for food sites. It's not a bad deal. We get to come all the way out here. We have stuff for a little bit of jet lag, but it's not like you can complain. And the fans here have been very reciprocative. Everyone actually, even if people don't know who we are, they're very sweet. Everyone has a smile on their face, and it's nice. It's very refreshing.
I was going to say this was kind of a media event today, but there were fans that were here as well, and I just sat here and watched you, take pictures and all that with fans. What's that like for you to be? We're literally halfway around the world, and there's people that know who you are that can't wait to meet you. Is that weird? Is it? I'm assuming you've got to enjoy it, but is it still a little overwhelming at times?
It's still always going to be a little bit strange, I think, that people care at all who I am. You know what I mean? I feel like I'm just on a daily basis just a normal person. But it's nice to know that there's people who really love what we do and they watch it clear across the world. And that I could be someone's inspiration or someone's role model or someone that means something to someone's life who's never even met me. I have some kind of influence, and that's really cool. So it's always a reminder to try to live your life, as a good example. And yeah, hopefully coming out here, we'll get more women in the Philippines to join gyms and get active and get after the sport. We need more international fighters, men and women alike. So.
Very cool. Hey, the last time I saw you and Brian was in Brazil. I know y'all were in the process of buying a house. Or you got the house? You're in Las Vegas?
We got the house. Yeah, we're in the Mountains Edge area, so it's really nice out there, and it's good. Yeah, it feels nice to finally have that done and wrapped up. I hate paperwork, so it's like the last thing I want to do. The UFC is always yelling at me because I'm like the last person to get I've gotten better, but I'm always the last person to get my paperwork in, so I hate paperwork. I'd rather just punch people.
No more paperwork.
No
That's a
paperwork.
good thing. So we'll talk about, why, I've lived in Vegas for about 8 years now. Some people come and they leave, and some people like it, they don't like it.
Yeah.
Extreme Couture had some tough days for a while, but now it seems like there's like a resurgence there. So why is Vegas the right spot for you guys?
Well, I mean, I think a huge thing is the gym. Like I said, I feel like it's made a huge comeback, and the coach, Robert Fallis, there is amazing. I think he's probably one of the most, if not the most underrated coaches in MMA. I know Greg Jackson gets a lot of credit, and I'm sure that, that's due credit, but someone who's definitely slipping under the radar is Robert Fallis. He's there for all the athletes, and he's just a tremendous, not only coach, but a mentor. He really looks after us, and he knows how to talk to everyone, and he takes the time to do that, to find out how his athletes tick and what are the differences that they need. We're not all the same. Some people like to be yelled at and smacked before they go into the cage, and some people like to, probably do some meditation or something, but he's there, he figures you out, and he's just really an amazing coach.
I was going to say, and I really enjoyed talking to Robert too. Is it at this point in your career, especially at the highest level, I almost think it's more about that kind of stuff versus like teaching technique or like who's got the best drills or who's got it's kind of like that mental side, right?
It is, absolutely. A huge part of fighting is mental, obviously. Everyone tells you that, but you can't say it enough. I think the biggest part of it, especially when you get to the high level, is mental, and he has that down better than any coach I've ever worked with. So he knows how to get me fired up, and he tells me, he's like, I'm not here to teach you how to fight. He's like, you already know how to do that. He's like, you're one of the toughest people, period. I'm not here to make you tougher, but he's like, I'm here to give you the tools, that you need, for mental edge. Sometimes that's what it comes down to. The skill sets are so razor thin, so razor close. Sometimes it really has to do with who's mentally more prepared.
Yeah. It was funny, last week in Australia, Jessica I was actually a guest fighter down in Australia, and it was the first time I'd really had a chance to speak with her. Very nice girl, very, very bubbly and very forward-speaking. I really enjoyed talking to her, but obviously you've got a different relationship with her right now. So
right.
Tell me what you think about her as an opponent. I mean, on paper it seems to be, obviously you've got the strong grappling base. She's got a strong striking base, but you're both well-rounded at this point. Break it down. How do you see the matchup?
Well, yeah, it's interesting that you bring that up. I actually had no idea she was a guest fighter for Australia until I got here, and a few of you guys told me that. But we've always gotten along all right. But I expected I'd anticipated that if we got matched up to fight each other, that there was going to be an energy change from her. She was always nice before, and not to say that she's rude now, but she's definitely trying to stir the pot a little bit more. She's definitely trying to kind of poke the bear a little bit, trying to, maybe get this Ronda Rousey, Miesha Tate feud going or whatnot. I'm not exactly sure of tactics, but it's funny, but. I forget. Oh, about the bout. It's about that, of course. I'm excited for that fight. I really think it's going to be a good one. I think she's tough, and I think she's really young and hungry. I think she really wants that. She has yet to have her time to shine. So I can only imagine she's going to train her butt off, and she's going to come, and we're going to see the best Jessica I that anyone's ever seen. It's a huge opportunity for her. So, and likewise for me. You know what I mean? To fight her and beat her, solidifies my spot as the #1 contender again, and could lead to me getting the title, so this is, a very important bout for me, so I'm definitely not going to take it lightly.
I feel like people do look at you as kind of like the stepping stone to a title shot. I don't mean stepping stone, and obviously you're a tough fight. I don't mean it that way, but like people if I want a title fight, I know I got to get Miesha, because if I can beat Miesha,
unless you're Betch,
unless you're Betch, and you just get to skip right by.
Then you get to dodge the bullet.
Yeah, let me get your take on that. I mean, that did seem kind of bizarre. And you know what's funny? I mean, once it got announced, you could kind of go back and you could hear like Ronda's interviews. I mean, it's obvious they were setting it up for a while and trying to make it happen, but did you think it's kind of a little unjustified?
I just don't think she stands a chance, really, honestly. That's my opinion. I could be wrong and anyone could win at any given moment, but I just feel like it's a really big mismatch because it's too early in Betch's career. She needs to like have more time to grow into herself as a fighter, and she hasn't had that, so I feel like she's kind of being thrown to the wolves early on. But maybe she'll lose and learn something from it and come back better for it and get another shot later. You know what I mean? Who's to say? So yeah, there's that. But yeah, I think everyone does kind of assume that I'm the gatekeeper of the division.
Right.
I'm the one that they have to get by. The problem is that no one's getting by. So yeah, right. You have to get through me to get the title shot, but they're not doing it. So that's fine with me. I can be the gatekeeper until I've shut down all the other number one contenders, and then they don't have a choice.
That's
Put me
awesome.
back in there.
I know you want to get another title fight. I mean, do you talk with Sean? Does he give you any indication, like, yes if you win, or no, like, listen, we can't put you back in there? I mean, do they give you any kind of feel, or do they kind of leave you in the dark?
No, they basically told me that after this next win that I will get another fight with Ronda. So I mean, anything could change. Nothing's ever written in stone, but that is the idea behind it. That I will be getting a fight with Ronda after this next win.
That's nice. Ronda released a book this week. She was on Howard Stern yesterday. Good Morning America. When she goes on these huge media tours, do you groan a little bit knowing, like, oh, I know my name's going to come up. I know I'm going to have to hear this, or this, this quote's going to come out, or that sort of thing. Is it frustrating?
Is that funny that I don't even know that stuff's going on? I'm really actually that oblivious to it. I mean, I did see that she released a book or whatever, because I follow Dana on Instagram,
right.
So I do see a little bit of that. And what's really funny is that the UFC sent out like a mass DM on Twitter asking, saying, hey, let's support Ronda. Give her a congratulatory tweet on Twitter about the Sports Illustrated thing,
right.
and they sent it to me.
Come
and
on.
I just responded like LOL. I'm like, yeah, right. You know what I mean? Like, it's not gonna happen. And they're like, oh, sorry, that was just a mass DM or whatever. But I thought that was really funny. So they're like, you can ignore it. I'm like, yeah, no shit.
That's fantastic. So I mean, you do end up having to talk about it all the time, but I guess that's okay, because as long as she's champion, it matters that you're talking, right? Because it means you're close.
Exactly. I mean, it's whenever her name gets brought up, my name gets brought up too. So there's definitely two sides to it. I can't be bitter about that for sure. So, and I think the fact that I'm coming up in more of a discussion as being the only fighter to take her out of round one and to actually be competitive with her, and the fact that there could be a potential for a third time. That's good for me. It's good to get my name out there. It's good to get women's MMA out there. So yeah, there's definitely two ways of looking at it.
Awesome. Well, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I want you and your boyfriend to go be able to enjoy Manila. But obviously, you've got your fight this summer. But anything else you have going on that you want to plug? People need to follow you, listen to you, go to you?
Oh, man. Just put me on the spot. Not that I can think of at the moment. I'm sure that there is. But I'm so jet lagged and just tired from everything that I don't think my brain's really working that well right now. So
I can completely
I'll have to get back
understand.
to you on that one.
Awesome. Thanks, Miesha.
Thanks for the
time.
opportunity, though. Appreciate it.
So that was the lovely and talented Miss Miesha Tate, who believes that, hey, another UFC title shot is on the horizon, and it's listen, it's tough to argue with her. Yes, she has fallen short against Ronda Rousey, so has everyone else, and Miesha just keeps winning fights and keeps putting herself back in those positions. So I'm not opposed to them fighting again. I think it's a great rivalry, and I'm not opposed to seeing it again.
Yep, cream rises to the top, man. If she keeps winning, it's inevitable, and I'll watch her anytime she fights. I have no problem watching that.
No problem with it, man. Again, not to take away from Jessica, I really enjoyed speaking with her last week in Adelaide, Australia. I think that's going to be a great fight.
Yeah, I won't be sad about that either. Go Ohio.
The Ohio connection there. Well, listen, appreciate everybody listening. Again, we were in Manila, Philippines for this week. Just to close, again, this is not an analysis show or a breakdown show, that sort of thing, but I am pretty stoked about Frankie Edgar versus Uriah Faber. I don't know how you feel about it. To me, I think it's a super fight.
Yeah.
I think it's, again, one of the biggest fights you can put together that's not with a UFC belt on the line. So I'm pretty stoked. I think it's probably going 25 minutes, but as I've said a couple times this week, I'm not sad about that at all. I'm excited that we're going to get to see, I think, 25 minutes of high-level MMA action.
I agree. I mean, I think both of them have the power and the ability to get that one hit, should it happen. And, we've seen Uriah, you can get in there and get that finish. But, yeah, I mean, and it's funny, everybody says super fight, and, gives this big connotation of it's going to be this huge thing. It's just going to be super fun to watch.
Nice.
You know, you got two guys with so much high energy, and I mean, honestly, how can you not want to watch one of those ones? When Frankie's into it and Frankie's throwing, you know the guy gives 110%. And Uriah, man, his last couple fights, I have thoroughly enjoyed watching that. And nice guy as well. Like, yeah, I'm fucking stoked to watch that.
I love it. I'm pumped up for it. Couple other things I'm looking forward to. Honorary Roadshow staffer Neil Magny. This guy, I think, in the past 12 I was looking at his record, thinking about him. First of all, Neil's funny because he's obviously very underrated. He's got an incredible win streak right now. He's got 6 wins in a row in the UFC's welterweight division, which is incredible, going for 7 straight. But in the last 12 months, I've seen this guy fight in New Zealand, in Brazil, and now the Philippines. I mean, this guy is making the world tour as well, so I think he gets honorary roadshow status.
Why not? I mean, when you have a win streak like what he's got going on, you should give the guy whatever he wants.
That's right. That's right. The other one, very, very interesting as well, John De Los Reyes is on this card. They use him out here in Asia a lot because he has connections to Guam. But it's funny because John De Los Reyes used to be a cook at the Buffalo Wild Wings at Warm Springs in Durango.
Oh,
right,
really?
where we sit on the patio and record the podcast from Las Vegas. He was actually cooked there at one time, so I think that's a pretty funny little story that when he got promoted. It was really funny because I remember the day his first fight was announced, and you know it was announced along with like 3 other fights. I want to say he fought on a Macau event was his first UFC fight, but I remember writing up the story and just putting it on MMA Junkie. And again, it was like 1 of 3 fights, so not a big deal or what have you. And I didn't know a lot about him, to be honest with you. So finished up with work, as I do on many nights. I headed to Buffalo Wild Wings on Warm Springs in Durango to have a couple of cocktails. And the manager came in, and the manager obviously knows. Everybody there knows what I do for a living. But the manager walked up, and he was like, "Hey, man, one of my boys just got signed by the UFC." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "My cook, John De Los Reyes, like he's going to fight in the UFC."
That's awesome.
I'm like, dude, I literally just wrote that up like 2 hours ago. They just announced it. You know, it's official and everything. And it was funny because the manager, they were saying, he's like, "Do you know how many guys I've had come through here over the years?" Because obviously, you know, you're in Las Vegas, you know, saying, "Oh, I'm going to be a pro fighter. I'm going to be this," or, you know, I'm this. And obviously, it's tough to make it to the big show, and they don't really pan out. And here was a guy that came in and said what he was doing and what he was working towards, and he gets to the UFC.
That's like the equivalent of, you know, of an actor in New York. You know, oh, I'm going to be somebody someday, and they're still that cook at whatever place they're at.
You're not going anywhere, bro.
This guy said it and did it.
That's funny. So listen, before we leave, in honor of Michael Chiesa telling an incredible classic road story,
goodness.
I thought I'd hit up cold coffee. And since we're in Asia, I was like, let's go through the memory banks. What's a story that happened over here that you can share with everybody? Because there are stories that we probably shouldn't share with people because our loved ones can listen to the show. But I thought you found one and searched the memory banks. Tell me about the time in Tokyo that you started out by surviving an earthquake and ended up locked out of your room in your underwear.
Well, speaking of like most other fun stories that usually involve me or you, there was nights of beverage. There were many beverages that took place that evening, but I was a good boy, made it back to my room, you know, proceeded to go to bed. You know, it was one of those good nights where I actually got out of my clothes, turned the lights off, you know, got under the covers, unlike this morning where I think after the final jet lag or whatever got me yesterday, I woke up this morning on top of the covers, shoes on, everything, lights on, TV on. This was not that case. This instance, I made it into bed, you know, slept or whatever. But at some point in the night, I hear this just banging on the door. Bang, bang, bang. And I'm thinking, who is this? What is going on? You know, kind of in a stupor because I didn't really come to or remember till I walked out of the room because I opened up the door, of course, thinking somebody must be really trying to get in touch with me. I walked out into the hallway looking, you know, right, left, trying to see. And this is when your eyes are clearing up a little bit from when you've been sort of sleeping. And I look around just in time to see my door shut. And I'm like, oh, that sucks. Go to reach and tap my leg, you know, trying to look for my shorts or whatever to see where my room card keys, when I proceed to notice that I'm in a wife beater and my underwear. Thank goodness they weren't tidy whities, you know, they were boxer briefs, you know,
okay,
so it
that's
a little bit better. But then the gravity of it hits, you know, and you're like, oh my goodness, what the hell do I do now? You know, luckily, well, not luckily because it didn't pan out, but the rooms on either side of me were other UFC staffers. Walk over to the other one and remember that, oh, this is one of our female PR people. I probably should knock on her door in the middle of the night in my underwear. So I'm like, well, shit, let me go over to the other guy. Knock on the door and no response. I'm like, oh, wait, this is not going well. This is not going well. Well, what do I do? You know, I had no real sense of what time it was. I knew it was early or late night, early morning, early whatever, depending on how, you know, your perspective. So I said, well, maybe I'll just hop in the elevator and I'll go down in the lobby and I'll just tell them my story and get a room key. So I get in the elevator, take the elevator down, and as soon as I sort of to step out, it was late, but I guess it wasn't that late that the bar wasn't closed. So being me, I contemplate, do I sort of just mosey quietly around the corner and get to the front desk and get a key? Or do I just, you know, what do I do? You know, and I admit it, I chickened out. I walked back into the elevator, pushed back up on the floor, and the whole time thinking, like, what the hell do you do? What do you do now? Paced back and forth down the hallway, you know, trying to find anything. And luckily, at the end of the hallway, there was like a service elevator. But next to the service elevator was one of the phones that just rings to the front desk. So I pick up the phone and start to tell my story. And how do you explain this? How do you even set this up? You know, you're like, you know, I was sleeping. Somebody knocked on my door, you know, I don't know. But somehow I'm locked out of my room. It was kind of the gist of what it was. You know, I didn't allude to the fact that, hey, I'm out here in my underwear, in my white wife beater shirt, you know, looking the form that I am, you know. And they're like, oh, okay, you know, we'll send somebody up. And it felt like eternity before it finally happened. So I'm still standing out in front of my door, you know, thinking like, please, nobody come outside. And lo and behold, I heard the elevator ding from down the way, and you see this older gentleman comes around the corner, and as he kind of rounds the corner and takes in the scene, and he's just like, whoa, and he's like running down, because this is a culture where, you know, they're very, you know, just something like this would be so embarrassing that nobody wants to embarrass anybody. Right. You know, they're very proper. They're very courteous. Very polite. So something like this, I think, in his mind was like, this was probably the worst, most embarrassing moment in my life. You know, granted, it was embarrassing, but it could be worse. You know, I could have been naked. I could have just been wife beater. You know. And so the guy comes, no questions asked. It wasn't like, hey, all right, what's your room? You know, like, what's your name? Give me this to verify. It was like, buzz inside the door, you know. Off the floor. Because this was a nice place as well. The last thing they want to do is see me lounging around in the hallways in my underwear. That's a Tokyo Hilton, right? That's a nice. Yeah, it's a very, very nice very, very nice place. And so I go back to sleep, embarrassed as all get out. The next day, you know, I proceed to tell the story about how somebody banged on the door, and I go in the hallway and blah, blah, blah. And that's when I find out that, lo and behold, the knocking and the loud noise was from the earthquake. It was an earthquake that was shaking the building, so the doors were slamming. You know, I mean, I didn't feel any shaking, but it was the knocking that woke me up or whatnot. And so there it was. I was like, wow. Not only did I survive an embarrassing situation, I survived an earthquake. But it wasn't bad. You know, there's nothing that happened in the town or whatever. You know, so but it could have been a lot worse.
There it was. The time cold coffee was in his hallway in the underwear.
Yes, could have caused an international incident with that one.
Awesome, man. Well, that's going to wrap it up for us. We just got another round of these frosty beverages on the way, and I think we're going to sit back and consume a couple of these bad boys and get ready for the rest of the weekend. So just want to thank everybody for listening. It really means a lot. Listen, follow us on Instagram, The MMA Roadshow. We both do a decent job of trying to take pictures, and you kind of see what we're out doing in the world. And kind of follow on with our journeys on the road. Follow us both on Twitter. At MMA Junkie John is me. At The Cold Coffee, that is THEE, as in the Ohio State University. That's a brand new Twitter account.
It is brand new. I'm the only person following myself. I forgot I had it.
At The Cold Coffee. Maybe he'll take a little more license with that one than his other Twitter account. So you can follow him there. Yeah. Obviously, you know, you can check out the MMARoadshow.com. We'll try to start putting some other stuff on there as well, but you can certainly listen to the episode directly from there. You can also subscribe to us on iTunes. Please subscribe, rate it, review it, give it all the feedback you can.
Tell your friends.
Tell your friends. Help us blow it up. We're having fun doing it. 7 episodes in the can now, and definitely more on the way. The rest of this month, after this week, it's back home in Las Vegas, UFC 187, and then after that, I'll be heading off to Goiânia, Brazil, for UFC Fight Night 67 at the end of the month there. So a busy May. After a few weeks at home in April, it's a very, very busy May. So and once again, I just want to thank everybody for listening. Again, we're at the Solaire Resort and Casino. It is gorgeous. The club is bumping as we've been taping the show. It's just been getting busier and busier behind us. So we are going to sit back, have a few more frosty beverages, and enjoy the evening. Hope you do the same. Thanks for listening.
See ya.